Hi guys. So I've been wanting to do a video about my experience with my industrial piercing, and I thought today would be a good day because today is exactly 1 year since I got this piercing done. And that being said, the first thing I want to say is several people have told me that this takes a year to heal, and I'm not saying that wasn't true for the people who told me that that was their experience, but everyone's body is different, and I think that's kind of extreme. Like, I went through a lot of problems with mine from months 2 to 6, but it still healed in 6 months, and my top hole healed in 2.5 months. So yeah, a year is an extremely long time, especially to deal with what I've had to deal with after I developed a bump or keloid or whatever you call it. So but yeah, so don't let the healing time scare you about getting this piercing. If you are able to avoid sleeping on it, and if you take proper care of it, it's really not that bad. The only thing that sucks is sometimes you get like a throbbing sensation, and like your ear will feel hot and it'll be red and swollen. And that didn't happen to me for the whole first month that I had it, and people even told me it would, and it happened to me like 3 days in. But that was the first time that I tried using soap on it, and I used antibacterial soap on it. It stung as soon as I put the soap on. And so this is a piercing you do not need to use anything except the piercing solution to clean it. Yeah, I learned that the hard way. And another very important thing is don't change the bar too soon. You want to wait at least 3 months, 6 months, preferably, because one hole might heal before the other one, like in my case, so I should have waited, 6 months to change it. But I'm kind of like aggravated that my piercer said it was okay to change in 1 to 2 months, but that's way wrong. And Google, I think, said that too. So some stuff I found on Google was helpful, other stuff not so much. That's why I'm making this video and telling people do not change an industrial piercing for at least 3 months. And you want to use good quality jewelry at first. I like gold, so I had purchased a 14 karat gold bar, but I just changed mine too soon in general, and I think that's what led to me getting the bump. And generally a keloid is a hypertrophic scar tissue. That's what they call a keloid. Mine, I don't think that was the case, because everything I tried to do to treat the bump as if it was hypertrophic scar tissue did not work, and it made it bleed. Because they say tea tree oil is good for the keloids, and aspirin paste, if you crush an aspirin, mix it with water, and put that on the bump. I've heard that gets rid of it in a few days. Mine, it just made it bleed. Everything I did to it made the bump bleed. And then it would look smaller, and it would look like it was gonna go away. It would get a scab on it, but then it would just come back. My bump was right here, and it was almost as big as one of these at one point. And that's what made my bottom hole have a miserable healing process, because I heard this on a YouTube video, I think, that there's different kinds of bumps, they're not all scar tissue, and some of them are actually an adverse reaction to the healing process, and it basically acts like a pimple, and that's what mine was. I wanted to pop it so bad because it was basically like a pimple. And I noticed, when I would get the bump, I'd poke at it ever so slightly. I didn't, I was scared to squeeze it. Nothing ever came out of the bump itself, unless it got a scab on it. Then the scab would come off and the bump would bleed. But I noticed that the drainage, the pussy drainage, was actually coming from inside the hole. So there was something that was going on inside with the healing that was causing that bump, and it was coming from inside the hole and not the bump itself. And what finally made the bump go away, I'm really glad I went to MedExpress, because I couldn't take it anymore. Because from months 2 to 6, at least once or twice a day, my ear would throb, and it was just annoying. It didn't, at no time during this piercing would I say that it was actually painful, or that it hurt. But it just, when your ear throbs, you're kind of miserable because it's annoying, and like I could feel that it was hot and red without touching it or looking at it. Then I looked at it and like, oh yeah, it's hot, red, and swollen and throbbing, you know. And it's just like sometimes that would last for 10 minutes, half hour, an hour, you know. And like to make it feel better, like you can spray your solution onto a piece of a cotton ball and wrap the cotton ball, or like in this case, I would sit the cotton ball on, you know, the bump on that area. And warm is better, you know, if you can make it with warm water or something, you know, and just like, you know, or warm your solution up or something and just soak your cotton ball and let it sit there for 5-10 minutes at a time, you know. So you can do that kind of stuff to make it feel better. My suggestion is just don't change your bar, you know, for at least 3 months, 6 months to be safe, I'd say. And then you might not get a bump that you have to deal with like this. What finally made my bump go away was peroxide. And Google will tell you not to use peroxide. That's why I was scared to use it. I went to MedExpress because I was so frustrated with my ear throbbing and all that crap. And like the doctor at MedExpress said that it was okay to try peroxide, you know. At that point, it's like, you know, I gotta do something. And peroxide is what got my bump to finally settle down and eventually go away. So, and I didn't have to use peroxide very much. Like, I think by the 3rd time that I used it, it didn't even foam up. But it helped significantly. And you don't want to put peroxide on a fresh piercing. Like, this was probably 5 months in. I'd say it was 4 to 5 months after I've had it that I used the peroxide. So you wouldn't want to use it on, you know, on a piercing you've only had for like a month or 2, you know, or something. But mine was, my top hole had healed already, and it was, you know, I had some bleeding on the top hole because I had a little bit of skin that looked like it was pushing up against the bar, but it wasn't a round bump like that was on the bottom one. But that skin got a little irritated on the top, and I tried a tiny bit of aspirin paste on that, you know, like skin that was like pushing against my bar, and it bled after I put the tiniest amount of aspirin paste on it. It bled for like 2 or 3 days, and then after that my top hole completely healed, and that was 2.5 months in. So that proves that, you know, like it can heal in 2.5 months. It's not necessarily going to take a year. But don't sleep on it at all. You know, that's just like, cartilage is real fussy. It gets irritated very easily. Like, I was at a point where I'm like, God, if I look at this thing the wrong way, like, it's going to throb. So yeah, and you want to be really careful taking your clothes on and off. You want to like stretch your shirt, you know, way around it so you don't snag it. You want to be careful washing and styling your hair. My nails, as you can see here, my nails have got caught on it a couple times. My hairdresser has snagged it, and that's like, I would feel I'd get to a point like where it was almost healed, and then I'd get my hair done. Back to square one. So it suffered some trauma too. Like mine, you know, I'm not sure if the bump came about because I changed the piercing actually, or because it suffered some trauma from my hairdresser and, you know, some other things. But this is a piercing, the least you touch it, the better. You know, you don't want to, don't twist it. Like, people will tell you when you clean it to twist it, or, you know, it might get stuck, so move the bar. Like, no. Like, this is a piercing that's going to do better if you don't touch it, move it, twist it, bump it, anything like that. I'm glad I did know that from the start. And about 2 weeks in, my bar started to move on its own when I would clean it. And you want to, like I said, don't use any soap or anything. If your shampoo gets on it, that's okay, because shampoo's mild. And I heard you can even use Dove soap, you know, and I never tried Dove on mine. I just know that after the antibacterial soap made it sting, I'm staying clear from soaps. And I just use the piercing solution, which I recommend H2 Ocean. H2 Ocean is great, but you can also use this NeilMed wound wash that you can get at like Walmart. And you want to like just get a Q-tip and spray it on a Q-tip, and use a different end of the Q-tip for each entry and exit wound. And really just like kind of clean, you know, like dab it around it and clean up if there's any crusties or anything or any blood, you know, but there's no need to like be moving and twisting your bar around for the first, 2 weeks to a month or so. It'll move. They'll give you a bigger bar in case of swelling, so it'll start to move on its own eventually when you clean it. And but the least you fuss with it, the better. If you can't refrain from sleeping on that side, like, don't even consider getting this piercing. It's not for you. Or if you sleep on a certain side, if you sleep on your right side, get it on your left ear. If you sleep on your left side, get it on your right ear instead. Or I heard, which I'm going to do, is buy one of those pillows with the hole, like a donut pillow that you can stick your ear in the pillow as you sleep. But yeah, just like follow those things, and you shouldn't get a bump. Also, I guess a bump could be caused from like the angle of the piercing. So you want to make sure you go to someone who knows what they're doing, which I think, like, the guy who did my piercing, and the shop in general, I think is, a good place, and they did a good job. But I did have another piercer tell me that they would have put my bottom hole like up just a little bit further. So even with this kind of piercing, even just like the angle of it, if it's putting the wrong amount of pressure on it when it's trying to heal, can cause a bump. So, I mean, that could be what my bump came from as well. Maybe it just should have been a better angle. But he kind of let me pick, and, this is where I said I wanted it, and he was like, okay, that'll work. So, yeah, this piercing is really awesome. I think it was definitely worth it. Yeah, I do regret changing the bar too soon. Like, 1 month is, for a lobe piercing, that's not a gauge. It's just like a tiny hole, and it's your lobe. You can change that in 4 to 6 weeks. But I mean, like, something that's a 14 gauge, and cartilage is way fussier. It should definitely, yeah, you shouldn't fuss with it for longer. 3 months, I'd say, like, it depends how it's doing. You have to kind of gauge, like, how it's doing. But see, with me, I thought mine was fine, because for the whole first month, I didn't have any drainage, any bleeding, any throbbing for a whole month, And so I was like, oh man, this is great. It's probably healed. It's doing great, Yeah, I was wrong. I knew as soon as I changed the bar, and it stung, I was like, oh crap, like, it's not ready to be changed. But it was too late because I had already taken it out. And so yeah, you definitely, if you're taking it out and it starts to sting or anything, like, it's way too soon. It's not healed yet. And so I didn't get any drainage or anything until that day, 1 month in, that I changed it. And then actually, like, the pus was probably in there. It just wasn't coming out because I wasn't moving the bar, which you're not supposed to do. But when I took it out and put the new bar back in, I could see on the top that it pushed some junk out of it. And from then on, I started getting drainage coming out of it. And don't be scared, like, if you've had piercings before, you know what I'm talking about, nothing to worry about. Because I had my belly button pierced, and, that was pus city 3 times a day for 3 months. And I was like, I didn't know that sorry, it's gross, guys, but I didn't know, like, that much pus could come out of something for that long, But yeah, and then they don't call it pus. Like, if you look up online, they'll call it lymph or something else. But to me, if it's yellow and gross and it looks like what comes out of a pimple, then, like, that's what I'm going to call it. But that doesn't mean it's infected. Like, your body is, because of a gauge piercing, it's a bigger hole, and your body's reacting to something being shoved through it. It's just going to do that. Honestly, like, mine still has a little bit of crusty and drainage every now and then, and it's been a year. But see, I consider mine healed because it doesn't bother me. Like, since the 6-month mark, it hasn't bothered me on a daily basis like it was then. Like, when I get my hair done now, I can, like, fold my ear like this. Right now, like, I can even push the bar up, I still try not to fuss with it too much when it's dry. If I change it, I want to spray it with the solution, or I want to use some kind of soap now, because definitely, like, after 4 months, 4 months and on, you should be able to use pretty much any kind of soap on it or whatever. And that helps in changing your bar because it'll slide right in, you know, whatever, slide out easy, you know. But I mean, now I'm at the point where I can push it up and down without anything on it, that's a good sign that it's not getting stuck. There's not too many crusties. Yeah, I barely get a crusty now, you know, but it's just like, it can have a little bit of drainage for up to a year of having this thing, but it hasn't bothered me in 6 months, and that's great because I freaking love this piercing. There's so many cute things you can put in it. I mean, my favorite one is like the rainbow arrow that looks like a little arrow just shooting through your ear. Centerpieces are kind of hard to put on, so I don't recommend a centerpiece at first if it's one of your first few times changing this, because it takes me a half hour to change it sometimes because I have long nails and just trying to get the ball on the top. My favorite way to change it is through the bottom and then up through the top, and to put the top one on. That's the easiest for me. Some people do it the opposite. Some people put it down this way and, you know, screw the bottom one on. It's all like what you feel comfortable doing and which way you can do it the best. Some of them are tricky, and I was like mad because I ordered this super cute bar and I can't put it in my ear. But yeah, it's an awesome piercing. Like it fits me and my style, and it looks awesome. I wanted to get some kind of cartilage piercing because my ear sticks out of my haircut, and I love it, and I think it was worth it. But I know for the future, you know, do not change it too soon. Don't fuss with it. Like, just be patient. Like, I know it's hard. And go to a piercer that'll let you pick something cute, because, I mean, like my piercer, they just had that plain silver bar, you know, and I didn't even get to pick a colored one or like opal balls for the ends of it or something. And that's why I wanted to change it too soon, you know, or so soon, I would say. Plus, they told me that was okay. So, yeah, it wasn't. And when you're getting it done, go to somebody who's going to do, you know, the holes separately. Like, do one, then let you breathe, you know, a second, and then do the other hole. They shouldn't be just like, oh, okay, like, here we go, you know, like, that's not good for the ear. That's not a proper way to do an industrial piercing, you know, so you want to, like, make sure that as well. But as far as pain, when I got it done, like, I didn't think it was bad at all. Like, honestly, because 6 months later, after I got my industrial, I got my third lobe hole, and I felt like that hurt worse than the industrial. I was like, man, like, I don't remember my industrial hurting that bad. Like, when, you know, so I don't think it was that painful. Google will, or whatever will tell you it's like the most painful piercing. Like, no, it's really not. I don't know. It just depends how you take pain, I guess. And I think I'm kind of a wimp, and it wasn't bad for me. So, but yeah, that's pretty much everything you should know about industrial piercing. Yeah, for anyone who's considering getting it, I totally would. Just make sure you take care of it properly, baby it, you know, don't touch it for a good while. All right, I hope this was helpful, guys. Thanks, and peace out.